Let's discuss this. Joining our panel this morning, the Associate Director of the Henry Jackson Society, journalist and commentator Douglas Murray. Welcome to the programme. And of course, you can continue to text, call, email and use social media to tell us what you think. Tommy will be letting us know later in the show. Douglas, you heard there Ghazi Khan saying the problem with trying to combat extremism is that actually the term itself is fairly ambiguous. How would you define it?
It's not ambiguous in the government's definition, which is very clear now. The government defines extremism as opposition to fundamental British values, such as the rule of law, democracy, liberal values, and indeed tolerance of other people's faiths. That's what the government guidelines now set out. It's a pretty good working definition of what I think most of us would agree that extremism constitutes. And what's more, the government expresses the view that this is an extremism which it is on the lookout for, as it were, wherever it may come from. Albeit there are very specific things at the moment.
Do you agree? If it does?
No.
Is that quite dangerous?
I don't think so. Look, it's worth remembering what this is and what it isn't. This is not putting the totality of the government's counter-terrorism policy responsibility on the shoulders of teachers. It really is not. What the government is doing, and this is just a part of it, is they are trying to find a cross-departmental policy towards extremism. Obviously, the case of, among others, the girls from Bethnal Green who went to join ISIS earlier this year is an example and a demonstration of the fact that it's a real concern and that it obviously includes an element of responsibility within the teaching profession. But this is not, as I say, only the teaching profession. It's about, and the whole government counter-terrorism, counter-extremism policy is about all sorts of parts of society. The Charity Commission, for instance, being given the powers to more rigorously pursue those organisations which use British charity law to help extremism. Well, another example, Ofcom, channels which often in foreign languages broadcast into the UK extremist material. Yeah. This is just one part of the points that Miriam made. The first is you really shouldn't portray the shutting down of extremist hate preachers who preach terrorism, preach hatred of British society, and say that being shut down is stopping free speech. It really is not. Well, there are laws on incitement in this country, and they should exist on the airwaves as well as elsewhere. And if you call for incitement, if you're an incitement preacher, then that is something that should concern Ofcom and concern this country. Secondly, on the case of the
But is it just hate? Sorry, Douglas, may I just ask, are you talking about, I mean, hate is a sort of rather vague term. Are you talking about violence and discrimination? Because international law forbids that, of course.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, but it is something which in recent years, many examples of that going on the airways. But just quickly also on the Bethnal Green case, this isn't about whether or not they were radicalised at school or at home. The point about this is, can you help teachers look for the signs of radicalisation that these girls at Bethnal Green School would arguably have shown? Now, I have to stress, this is not, again, only about teachers. It's very hard if often a parent doesn't even notice their child is being radicalised, or a husband, as we saw recently of the women who recently went, doesn't notice it or says they don't notice it. But it is incumbent, I think, and possible that you could prevent some of these cases by at least arming teachers with the knowledge of what to look out for. And that's all this is. Okay. It is not spying, it is doing everything that everybody else can do as well.